tourism for the wine industry is in the country. So it's agricultural tourism, and traditionally that's the way people have gone around to different wineries to get to know more boutique wineries or craft wineries, and try and patronize, try their wines and patronize if they like them. And that's how many of us, including Maragas Winery, have our business models based on the customer coming to us and or direct shipping to them, because we don't make enough wine to distribute it. That would be another entity entirely.
Hey, what's going on? We're here in another conversation of Let's Talk Tourism, and now I have the pleasure of talking with Doug Maragas. He is the owner of this winery, of Maragas Winery here in it could be Culver, Oregon. It's still in Culver.
Yes, we're technically Culver, but
it's kind of in the middle, right?
Well, we're a mile from the Terrebonne border.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about his history, how they started this winery. Also a little bit about winery in Central Oregon, and also how it relates with tourism here in this region. So Doug, I appreciate your time and for doing this conversation, and talk a little bit about yourself, like where are you from, and a little bit about how this winery got started as well.
Well, the idea of the winery started when I was a kid. So my family's been in the wine industry a long time. We still have the same vineyard that we've had for hundreds of years, literally, in a place called Crete in Greece. It's the big island of Greece.
I see.
And those techniques my grandparents brought over to the United States and started brokering grapes and making wine commercially in 1941. And
way back. Huh?
Way back, yeah. So in those days, the population was dense on the East Coast, much more so than the West Coast. So even though the grapes were coming out of the West Coast, in particular, they were. My grandmother was based out of Lodi, and then my grandfather was in Ohio, and they would ship the grapes on train cars and process them out there for jug wineries in the East.
Really?
And that's how they got started in the United States, and they also sold grapes to still some of the known wineries in those days, like Mondavi and Sebastiani and Gallo, etc., brokering the grapes to those wineries in California. And then all of my grandparents were immigrants, so it was very important for them, for all of us to get educated, so all of us got educated, and I thought they had a pretty decent life and revolved around the wine industry. So after I was done doing all of that on the professional end, from being educated as much as I could tolerate, I went back to what I thought would be a better life that I witnessed from them, and we started this winery. I started it in 1999, apart from the family business, and it was originally, we were located on the east side of Bend. And then we bought this farm in 2005, where we're sitting right now, and it's been here since then.
I see. I did not know what is it that you studied, if you don't mind asking?
Law.
Nothing, huh? Nothing related to
No.
this, huh?
Yeah, but I had a lot of science in college.
I see.
Because in those days I was on a different track, but and I did have some education formally in enology and viticulture, but by far the most that I've learned is from my family.
I see. Yes. I see. Even there are several, like you can say, drawings of things of that nature that were made. Is there Lovato? That is who is
Latavo? Yeah. So that's my mother's
Latavo?
maiden name. Yes.
Okay.
So she, I used all of her art for the labels on the wine bottles, and those in particular that I used, with the exception of just a couple of wines that are more of her fine art, so to speak. But she was an oil painter, but she did all these fun caricatures in the 50s, and they're all caricatures of family friends, and they're funny. And so even though we're making the best wine we can possibly make, and it is taken seriously, I didn't want it to be pretentious, so I thought that would be perfect. Plus, it made me laugh, so I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, it's a perfect touch. Huh?
Yeah, well, thanks.
Touch.
Yeah, so that was a concept. Initially, it's interesting, I got a lot of flack from the wine industry for
Really?
putting caricatures on what would be considered serious wine. But I stuck it out, and now there's really no problem with that.
So you
at
beat
this
it
time,
to him.
yeah.
That's good. That's very curious. I've never seen kind of those drawings on wine, and it's good to see that you challenged them and made that effort. You know.
Thanks.
Is this region, because I've been here for 2 years, and this region of Central Oregon, mostly, well, Oregon in itself, but like the Willamette Valley is very focused on wine. Is Central Oregon as well? Like,
It's starting to be.
it's starting. It's
Yeah,
in the
so
process, right?
we were the first ones in Central Oregon to have a traditional European wine grape vineyard.
I see.
And we were the first ones to have a winery and a vineyard here. So we kind of started that. Now we were the third behind one in the 1800s that ironically was another Greek person out of Redmond. And I can't find that material, but I have it somewhere. And then our friends Rita and Al was a retired nuclear physicist, medical physicist, and he retired and wanted to make wine with his wife Rita. And we coexisted with them, but they preceded us in Central Oregon. But before, and they're no longer in existence. Obviously, the one from the 1800s is no longer around. But so we're the ones that really, well, we're the oldest winery here. We're also the oldest winery and vineyard here. But we had to learn quite a bit because being the first vineyard here, you have to figure out what to grow unless you want to just throw some things in the ground that you think are going to grow for decor. But to really get fine wine that's world renowned and to find out how to grow it and what to grow, it took about a dozen years of experimentation. And that's what the first block of our vineyard is as you drive in on the right side of the drive. It's about 2.5 acres, and we experimented with, well, actually now just shy of 50 varietals.
50 kinds of wine.
To see what to grow, and we moved them around, moved spacing, et cetera, to see how to grow them, different pruning, different training styles. Now it's much later. All that started in 2006, and now it's 2022. So at this point now we've taken what we've learned, and we're planting out different vines in different areas, and we've pooled vines from different areas because they weren't working out quite the way we wanted to.
Exactly.
But the great part is that there are several traditional European varietals that do quite well here.
Yes, because this region of Central Oregon, well, it's a high desert.
Correct.
So the humidity is less, the ground is more dry, you know.
Which grapes like that.
Oh, they do. Okay,
Yeah, so if
perfect.
you look at the great regions for growing grapes, they all have that,
I see.
with just a few exceptions in common. And our family vineyard in Crete is volcanic sandy loam soil. This is volcanic sandy loam soil. They have wet winters and sunny summers, wet winters, sunny summers. They have a diurnal shift between the night and day temperatures here, even a bigger diurnal shift between night and day temperatures. All of those are what makes a place great for growing grapes. So although it started late in the idea of growing grapes in an area in the United States, it is certainly suitable for excellent viticulture and grape growing.
It's relatively in the same latitude as the European parts as well. Yeah,
Depending on where you're going. Yeah. My wife's family, they have some vines, a small vineyard in Fagagna, Italy, which is just on the south side of the Alps. So even though it's southernmost more so, but it gets cold there, et cetera. So the latitude, I think what you're referring to is potentially how cold or hot it is during a season.
Yes.
And it is then important to experiment to see which grapes fit that particular climate that you're in. So that's what the concept of terroir that the French talk about. It's everything, it's the dirt, it's the air, it's the moisture, etc. But when you do that, then you have an idea, well, maybe it grows, for example, in Germany. Maybe it'll grow here because it's not as warm there, etc. But then you really have to figure it out by planting the plant and taking a look. To just do it outright might not be a good idea, because if you make a mistake, then it's quite a
investment.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a big investment. I can imagine the amount of effort that is undertaken just to keep the business.
It's a lot of
going,
labor.
yeah? It's a lot of labor.
Generally, because of that, I think wineries are multi-generational, meaning it's generally going to go past a first generation, a family business to have it, and then past that first generation is when the family can then be more successful economically, because it's kind of difficult in the first generation with all of the outlay of time and effort to make it turn quickly, economically profitable.
Yes, profitable. And I assume that's kind of your goal, right? What your
Hopefully,
mission,
yeah.
keep it on, to pass it on to your family.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And grow it and make the brand known, which I think is already known in Oregon, but
well,
outward,
I hope so, but we'll see, right? I mean, every day is a new day, but we have had very good fortune, and we have been accepted. Our wines have done very well in competition, and now pretty much the only place where we compete is in San Francisco at the Chronicle competition, because it's the biggest one in the world for American wines. And this past year was a banner year. We took home 11 medals, including 4 gold medals, et cetera. So that's a good standing for us, I would think, for anybody. But
of course,
it also is great in that it establishes whether you're on the right page or not, and whether you're going to be accepted by the critical community of the wine industry, the wine critics. And then what follows then, of course, we hope, and has been, are the people that love to drink wine, and they come and then patronize your establishment, so you can pass it on, because without those patrons, we have a slight issue.
Exactly, demand. And it's good that you mentioned that, because I wanted to focus that regarding tourism, which I think is a big part of the people who visit your winery and consume your wine. How do you think that tourism was back then when you started in the 90s, and how it is currently here in Central Oregon?
Well, it's much different. Yeah, I mean, the place has changed so much. Central Oregon, all of Central Oregon has changed, and there's much more influx of tourism now than there has been in the past, and it's incrementally grown. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but you can tell by the traffic on the road, which we're right off of Highway 97, which is a 2-lane highway. I mean, it's interesting out west, we call those highways. In the eastern part of the country, they would not call it a highway.
Just roads, huh?
With driveways every 500 feet. It's interesting, but at the same time, when you see all that traffic, we then do get tourism off of that road. Let alone from people that go on the internet and say, what are the wineries in Central Oregon, and then they visit and tour in that way. So generally, except for tasting rooms that are located in cities, but not with the winery. Tourism for the wine industry is in the country. So it's agricultural tourism, and traditionally that's the way people have gone around to different wineries to get to know more boutique wineries or craft wineries, and try and patronize, try their wines and patronize if they like them. And that's how many of us, including Maragas Winery, have our business models based on the customer coming to us, and or direct shipping to them, because we don't make enough wine to distribute it. That would be another entity entirely.
You need more capacity, it's more people, more labor, more things, right?
And also, Filippo, I mean, it's you can only get to a certain capacity when you leave the realm of craft wine.
Exactly.
So it will always stay somewhat limited. You can grow to a certain extent, which we will, but not to the point where it's not still hands-on.
And then it will lose quality, and I get it. And I wanted to ask, is there anything that you noticed that recently with the influx of more tourists, more residents, that could be improved regarding tourism here in Central Oregon, or even as a community as well?
That's a good question. The striking thing that comes to mind first is, I already mentioned the highway aspect, and
infrastructure.
It's not really, forgive me, ODOT, but it's not well done. It's quite dangerous, unfortunately, for some folks. When the traffic gets heavy, to pull out and onto the highway can be a little daunting. So that would definitely improve things. As far as the community is concerned, I really don't know. I mean, I think you know, that might be more behooving on us to let them know that we're here. To a certain extent, it is such that in craft wineries, smaller budgets, because smaller goods, quantity of goods, so we don't have the marketing funding that the larger industrial wineries would have to market and get the word out. So community involvement, such as, you know, the city or the tourist agencies here,
Yes, I was
paying attention to us is certainly helpful. And,
they have reached out to you, for example,
Yeah.
visit Redmond, visit Bend.
Yeah,
they
have.
have
Yes.
collaborated with you.
Yeah, and that's
good.
helpful. And I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me on that. I'm definitely not a marketer. I can make the wine, but on that aspect, I'm a little bit behind the starting line.
Yeah, no, it's a very complex topic, of course. How to make yourselves stand out, especially now in this digital age, everything has become so much complex as well. But but I think, like I said, like tourism is a big aspect which benefits your brand as well.
Well, and I think too, if people do make the venture out to come to some of these wineries, including ourselves, you'll find that there is a uniqueness to the wine. So, for example, I don't know of any winery in the United States that follows the methodology that we do. So the extensive barrel aging in a dry environment, and I mean extensive, multiple years, and natural winemaking, which for us is just 4 ingredients, which is grapes, yeast, bacteria, and sulfur. And a lot of folks say, well, sulfur, but sulfur's been around for millennia, you know, and by far the majority of the winemaking world considers it organic, even though the United States doesn't. We do not do the things that are permitted in the United States, however, that most wineries do, which is there are several 70 plus things that you can add to wine that aren't on the label to alter the flavor or the texture, et cetera, of the wine to make it more palatable. We don't do those things. So then, therefore, when you come to wineries such as ours, and it may be something that you find very enlightening and very worthwhile and limited and unique that you want a part of. And be a part of, and that's why we have a wine club, and it's the base of our business model is between our wine club that people continually get a shipment of wine from us, and they get to select which wines they like, or they drive in and they say, well, you know, let's try the wines today. You know, people off the highway, or people in Central Oregon, or people visiting from California or Washington or wherever, and that all of that together is our economic model.
Exactly, yes. So I wanted to ask you this. Do you think that tourism in the long run could be a good thing, or can also have its consequences as well regarding tourism development or city development or
I don't know.
social tensions, things of that nature?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any tensions because, again, we're in the country, and you know, the nearest house to us is a quarter mile away. You know, it's it's a farm, right? Everybody's got land, and wineries in particular are pretty. They're good for farming. They're good for the community. We're not a nighttime venue, you know, so it really doesn't do much to bottleneck anything of that nature. Like if that would be a controversial thing, and it's a very beautiful thing, and we're also organic, so it's a very healthy thing for our neighbors as well as ourselves. I mean, you can visit here and walk on the lawn, which is organic, so you feel free to take your shoes off and walk around. You're not going to get you know, poisoned by some chemical that was needed to keep weeds out, for example. So all of that, and you can maintain a beauty. It's a lot of labor to pull the weeds by hand, but the ultimate end of it is a very healthy place to go, as well as the grapes are as healthy as you're going to grow grapes to consume, whether it's wine or in a table grape.
Exactly.
And so that's what we follow, what we believe in.
I see. That's really good, and that's why people are willing to come from far away places for a certain spot because of its organic essence, you can say, right?
Yeah, I
or
think
things
so.
of that
I
nature,
mean,
right?
the quality of the wine, the healthy nature of the wine being organic, the healthy nature of the farm being organic, and just hopefully outstanding wine.
Exactly. And I wanted to ask, what do you think is the future for wine for wineries here in Central Oregon? Are you mentioned that more are sprouting.
Yes.
Are they becoming like kind of organic, or are they becoming a little bit more
Not yet.
industrial or
Well,
commercialized?
they're smaller but not organic,
Nice.
and they're not really doing the experimenting that I would think would benefit them. But again, I understand it takes a lot of years to do the experiment on your farm to see what is the best grape to grow for fine wine. You can plant whatever you like. You know, it might be a safe bet. For example, grapes that grow in the Midwest. I've heard a lot of vineyards doing that, but it's not going to produce what most people are going to purchase,
Exactly.
or what you find in a store. So if you take the time, and I think wineries that are going to come here and vineyard owners that are going to come here, the next generation subsequent to us will take that time to do it, because I think the economic model would be more for producing fine wine on an economic scale as opposed to decorative vineyards or small vineyards just to live out a retirement dream.
I see.
So that's a different dynamic if you get companies coming in here that want to make profits for themselves or their investors, to make wine that would compete on a world-class level.
That is a really good point. Hopefully that turns out how it is, because there's still a lot of opportunity. I noticed in this space there's not a lot
There is.
wineries, so that's going to be an open space, or even for you to open up your market as well.
No question. And also with climate, the climate changing, which indisputably is changing, whether or not you argue about the reasons for the change, okay, but it is changing.
It is.
And with that, this area is a pretty prime area for growing grapes. You're not going to find much better.
It is. It's a curious dynamic that I notice here in Central Oregon, because I've been once or twice to Willamette, or I just seen online,
Yes.
and they have more of a focus there. But I think here is like where it's going to be. Yeah?
It's going to be up and coming,
Yep.
for sure. It
So
is up and
hopefully-
coming, yes.
So hopefully we get to be there. Knock on wood.
That's
huh?
right,
To that
always,
time.
yeah.
So Doug, I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks, Filippo.
Yeah, if you as well, thank you for watching the video. If you ever decide to come here to Oregon, please definitely stop by here to Maragas Winery. Doug, please tell us any contact information of where they can reach out, either to buy wine or to make a reservation or for a wedding.
Sure.
What contact information do you have?
Well, you can go online at maragaswinery.com. It's all one word, Maragas, as in Sam, winery.com, or you can call. But if you go online, you'll get the phone number there.
Perfect.
And we're open daily in the summer, and there's more limited hours, but we are open in the winter as well, weekly. And daytime is our time, with just a few exceptions. And we'd welcome you to come and see what we're doing out here.
Yes.
Try the wine, and you can also come here, and where we're sitting right now, you can share a bottle of wine with your friends or family. And during the holidays, it's a nice time to come out because it's all decorated for the holidays, etc.
I bet, and it's a good season now. It's coming.
It's coming.
Thanksgiving, winter, December,
Out
you know.
here. And winemaking. We're
I
right on
bet.
the cusp of harvest. Yeah, we're weeks away.
So hopefully you also get to show that process as well, because I think they'll be pretty interested in
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah, definitely it's going to happen.
I will.
And we welcome people to come and watch. It's not a big deal for
Definitely.
us.
So Doug, thank you again for your time, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.
All right. Thank
care.
you, Filippo. Cheers.